You know that friend who's basically a human Swiss Army knife, the one who's always swooping in to save everyone else's day, who shows up with wine and wisdom when you're having a meltdown, who somehow manages to fix your Wi-Fi router, your existential crisis, and your dating life all in one afternoon? Yeah, that absolute legend. Now here's the hilarious part. Ask them if they need anything and watch them recoil like you just offered them a live scorpion. Me? Oh no, I'm fine, totally fine, everything's fine. There's something genuinely wild about people who've turned refusing help into an Olympic sport, and I'm not talking about your garden variety stubborn types who just like doing things their way. I'm talking about the people who'd rather construct an elaborate pulley system to move a couch up 4 flights of stairs alone than text literally anyone, "Hey, free pizza if you help me move this thing?" These are the folks who've weaponized self-reliance to the point where asking for help feels roughly equivalent to walking into Times Square naked while screaming their deepest insecurities. And here's the kicker. Our brains are literally designed for teamwork and connection, so these people are essentially fighting against millions of years of evolution because, why exactly? Pride? Terror? A deep-seated need to prove something to absolutely nobody? Let me show you the delightfully dysfunctional psychology happening here. Picture this absolute nightmare scenario. You're drowning in deadlines. Your car decided to become a very expensive lawn ornament. You haven't slept in 36 hours, and you've got a project due that would require you to literally clone yourself to complete on time. Normal humans would, I don't know, ask for help, call in a favor, admit they're mortal, but oh no, not our self-reliant heroes. Their internal monologue is more like, I should be able to handle this. Everyone else has their life together. I'm probably the only person on earth who can't juggle 17 impossible tasks while smiling. What kind of incompetent disaster of a human am I? And so they suffer in silence, surviving on caffeine and spite, pulling all-nighters that would make a med student weep, all to avoid the utterly devastating experience of saying, I could use some help. Psychologists have actually studied this magnificently self-destructive pattern. And surprise, surprise, it usually goes back to childhood. Because of course it does. Everything goes back to childhood. There's this thing called attachment theory that basically explains how, baby, you learn to navigate relationships. And if your needs were consistently met with annoyance, indifference, or the emotional availability of a brick wall, your tiny developing brain made a mental note, asking for things equals bad. Being needy equals dangerous. Better to just need nothing ever. Maybe your parents were stretched too thin, or emotionally checked out, or they gave you a gold star every time you didn't bother them. And your brain, being the overachieving student it is, learned that lesson perfectly and has been running that same programming for the next 3 decades. Here's where it gets absolutely ridiculous. That coping mechanism that helped you survive childhood? Your brain apparently never got the memo that you're not 7 anymore. You're surrounded by actual functional adults who genuinely want to help you, who wouldn't judge you for having basic human needs, but nope, that ancient neural pathway is still convinced it's 2007 and asking for help will result in emotional abandonment. Your brain is out here running on Windows 95 while trying to handle 2025 problems. Good luck with that. And can we talk about the spotlight effect for a second? People who can't ask for help are absolutely convinced that everyone is watching them with the intensity of a hawk tracking a field mouse. They think asking for help is like announcing their failures over a loudspeaker at a packed stadium. Attention everyone! Jessica needs assistance. Please note her incompetence for your records. But here's the reality check. Nobody cares. Like truly deeply, nobody is paying that much attention. Research literally shows that people are too busy obsessing over their own problems to maintain a detailed catalog of your shortcomings. When you ask someone to help you move, they're not thinking, wow, what a pathetic failure of a human. They're thinking, free pizza and I get to feel useful? Score. Then we've got perfectionism, which is just fear wearing a really expensive suit. Perfectionism and refusing help are basically codependent roommates who enable each other's worst behaviors, because if you ask for help, you're admitting you're not the flawless, all-capable superhuman you've been pretending to be. You're revealing that there's a gap between the highlight reel you project and the blooper reel that is your actual life. And for perfectionists, that gap might as well be the Grand Canyon, so they'd rather slowly crumble under the weight of everything than risk anyone seeing them be, God forbid, human. But let's get real about what this actually cost you, because it's not just about being impressively stubborn. There's legitimate damage happening here. Studies show that people who chronically refuse help have higher rates of anxiety, depression, and even heart problems. Your body is literally out here like, cool, so we're doing everything alone forever. Great, let me just flood you with stress hormones and inflammation, because apparently we're under siege. When you won't let people in, your nervous system stays stuck in this paranoid state of high alert. You're basically telling your body, we're surrounded by people but trust nobody, and your body responds with all the biological enthusiasm of a fire alarm that won't shut off. And here's the part that'll really bake your brain. By refusing help, you're actually being kind of selfish. Wait, hear me out. There's this whole thing in psychology about how helping others makes people feel amazing. It's called the helper's high, and it's a real neurochemical reward. When you let someone help you, you're giving them a hit of feel-good chemicals. You're making them feel competent and needed and connected. But when you refuse help, when you insist on martyring yourself, you're essentially telling people, I don't need you, which translates to I don't trust you, or you're not important enough to be vulnerable with. So congratulations, you're not just hurting yourself, you're also depriving everyone around you of the warm fuzzies. Efficient. There's also this whole identity crisis happening. For people who won't ask for help, being the strong one isn't just a trait, it's their entire personality. It's their brand, their value proposition to the universe. Asking for help would mean dismantling their whole sense of self, and that's genuinely terrifying. It's like if you spent your whole life believing you were a majestic oak tree, providing shade and stability for everyone, and someone's like, hey, maybe you could be a vine sometimes and grow up someone else's support, and you're just standing there like, but I'm a tree. Trees don't do that. The entire metaphor collapses. But here's what I actually need you to understand. Especially if you're sitting there feeling personally attacked right now, strength isn't about never needing anyone. That's not strength. That's just isolation with better PR. Real strength is knowing when you're at your limit and having the emotional intelligence to reach out. Think about literal physical strength for a second. Even the most jacked person at the gym didn't get there by refusing all assistance. They had trainers, spotters, meal plans from nutritionists, probably some YouTube tutorials. Nobody looks at an Olympic athlete with an entire support team and thinks, what a weak loser, can't even train alone. We get that excellence requires collaboration. Life works the same way, except somehow we've convinced ourselves that needing help makes us failures. The most resilient people aren't the ones who never ask for anything. They're the ones who built support networks, who learn to recognize their limits before they hit the wall face first, who understand that asking for help at mile 3 prevents a total breakdown at mile 20. It's actually smarter and more sophisticated than just white-knuckling everything alone. But sure, let's all keep pretending we're invincible islands. So if you're one of these magnificently stubborn people, let me offer you a slightly different way to look at this. What if asking for help isn't proof that you're failing at life, but actually evidence that you're self-aware enough to know your limitations? What if it's not a weakness but a skill you just never learned because nobody taught you? And what if, wild thought here, the people around you actually want to help because they care about you, not because they're keeping score of your inadequacies? You don't have to have a complete personality transplant tomorrow. Just try something small. Ask someone for their opinion. Let your friend pay for coffee without starting a mental ledger of debts owed. Say, actually, yeah, that would be helpful, instead of your automatic no, I've got it, I'm fine, everything's fine. See what happens. Spoiler alert, the world will not end. People will not suddenly brand you as incompetent. Your relationships might actually improve when you show up as a real person instead of a machine that runs on stress and denial. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. We're all just confused humans stumbling through existence, and literally none of us were designed to do this solo. That wiring in your brain that makes connection feel good, that's not a glitch in the system, that's the whole point. It's what kept our ancestors from getting eaten by saber-toothed tigers, and it's what makes life bearable now. So yeah, maybe let someone help you occasionally. Your brain, your body, and everyone who cares about you will be absolutely thrilled. And who knows, you might even discover that being human with needs and limits and vulnerabilities is actually way more interesting than being a self-sufficient robot. Just a thought. And speaking of asking for help, do me a tiny favor. If this video hit home for you, or if you're currently feeling personally attacked by your own patterns, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more psychology content that calls you out in the most loving way possible. And honestly, I'm curious, are you someone who struggles to ask for help, or are you the friend who's exhausted from watching your people suffer in silence? Drop a comment and let me know your story. Share this with that one person who desperately needs to see it, but will absolutely deny that it's about them. Let's normalize being humans who sometimes need other humans. Revolutionary concept. I know,